Okay, so in this week's lesson, we're going to talk about phrasing and playing it like you sing it. It's a different approach to playing lead than doing something fast or flashy. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. There's definitely a time and a place for all of that. Sometimes you want to do something that's impressive or do a little fast run or something. But some of the most memorable leads that I can think of, and not just with guitar, I'm talking about with saxophone or piano, but the melodies that just jump out at me are ones that are phrased like a vocalist would sing. And so you've got places in there where you could take a breath, or they've got like good vibrato or the bends or whatever. And so that's what I want to talk about in this lesson. So we're going to go through actually a fairly simple lead. It's split across 2 videos. In this video, we're going to go through the first half of what I played. And this is played on a jam track that's super basic. 2 chords, a C chord and an F chord. And so I love the challenge of that. Like, what can I play on top of a C and an F to make it sound interesting and sound memorable, or like something you would hum or want to hear again? So that's what we're going to talk through. I'm just going to share all my thoughts, and we'll break it all down note for note over the course of these 2 videos. If you'd like to watch the part 2 video, and also get the MP3 jam track and also the tablature, which has a PDF file, and also the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive. Tab and video on the screen at the same time. There's no talking in it, but you can loop sections and slow down playback and all that. You can get all the extra materials for this lesson by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP634. All right, so what I'm going to do now is put on a jam track with those 2 chords, the C and an F chord. And I want to give some examples of playing kind of all over the place without any breaks. The way that I hear a lot of players doing it, where you're just and by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. I won't be playing anything technically wrong. I'll be within key. I'll be playing the right scale. But sometimes it's those little nuances that get overlooked. And so I'll give an example of that, and then I'll give an example of more like a vocalist, where there's places to stop and take a breath and harmonies and all that. So let's take a look at that. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. So check this out. Just playing up and down the scale. It's kind of like one big run-on sentence. There's no breaks in there. And what you want to hear, it's sort of exhausting to listen to that. What I like to hear is little breaks, like a singer. You gotta take a breath. You can still do a fast run, but then break, like make that a phrase. Like this. Harmonies, you could work those in. We're going to talk about how to do all that as we get into the lesson. But I just wanted you to hear the difference between that and this. All right, so just keep that in mind as we go through this. Let's listen to the first phrase, and then we'll break it down. All right, so remember, there's just 2 chords that we're playing over. It starts with a C, so I strum a C in the jam track, and then it goes to an F, and then back to the C. And so the first thing that I played goes. Let's talk about what's going on there. It's very simple, this part. This is simple to play, and it's also simple to understand if you can connect it to chord shapes. So we're going to start with this. We're going to start with a ring finger on the 5th fret, 5th string. We're going to slide up to the 7th fret, and then we're going to bar on the 5th fret strings. We're really hitting strings 4 and 3. That's what we're aiming for there, those 2 notes. So we're doing this. And it doesn't come in right on the 1. So if you're playing along with a jam track, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it'd be kind of like on the and of 1. So it comes in right there. Now, what this is, remember, we're playing over a C chord at this point. So this is where we're at. So here's my C chord using the A shape. This is all going to connect back to the C.A.G.E.D system. So there's the C chord using the A shape. Here's the next one up, which is the G shape. Here's my C chord using the G shape. Here's the bottom part of that G shape. Now this gets used a lot. Strings 5, 4, 3, actually 5, 4, 3, and 2. It's just another voicing of your chord here. So here's how I think of it. You have your major chord using the A shape here. So in this case, it's a C chord. My bass note is this C note here. I can take this triad where I'm barring there, and I can just replace it with this finger and then change the bass note. That's all that's changing. This triad stays the same, but the bass note is now changed to the 7th fret, 5th string, which is an E note. So you have a C over E. And what I'm doing for that first little bit is just this, really just playing this chord. So you can see where that lead is coming from now. It's just coming out of that chord shape, sliding up to that bass note, the E, and then hitting strings 4 and 3 out of that triad there from the C chord. And then I went like this. That's a little embellishment off of that. So while we play that bar there on strings 4 and 3, I'm going to do a hammer-on to the 7th fret, 4th string. And that is a nice little kind of pedal steel kind of lick that is a fun thing to do when you're holding out on a chord for a long time. So you have, and then I come back. So, and then I come down and bar, for this next part, I'm gonna make sure I'm barring strings 5 and 4, and I do a hammer on to the 7th fret, 5th string. And that's just hammering back into that C chord with the E and the bass. So when I came up here and hit this, that happens as the jam track plays the F chord. And it makes sense if you think about the chord shapes, because my F chord using the C shape is right here. And if I look at just strings 4 and 3 out of this chord, that's what I hammered onto. So I'm just playing a little piece of that chord. So really, most of what we're doing here with these harmonies are we're just playing the chords. We're just, instead of playing the full chord with 3 or 4 strings, we're just playing a couple of notes. So notice the little stops in there, though. That's key. And that's what really gives it more of that vocal quality, as opposed to just a run-on sentence where you're playing up and down a scale. You're thinking like somebody would think if they were singing it. You might sing a line, take a breath, take another breath, and play the next part. All right, so for this next phrase, we're going to take that same little idea where we do the hammer on to the 7th fret, 5th string. So we're going to start with that, and then I'm going to play this lick. Like, it's just a little embellishment off of this chord shape to give it something interesting. And to me, this sounds kind of Hendrixy. It sounds like something you might hear Hendrix play. And maybe that's where I got that, actually. I don't know. But so it's a hammer on with your middle finger to the 6th fret, 5th string, hammer on pull off, and then I do an upstroke with the right hand while my pinky hits that 6th string on the 8th fret. So it's like this. Now that's a stretch, and if you can't do that stretch, you can skip that. I understand. Like, I had to kind of work up to this one. My pinky didn't work very well for many years, so I couldn't have done this for a long time. And I probably would have just done something like this. So instead of hitting this note, I did an upstroke on the 4th string there, behind that 5th fret. So it's like, that works too. So if you ever run into a wall where you can't do something, just find a workaround. Find some note that kind of works. Nobody knows or cares, you know. It's just, to me, it's just like keeping the rhythm going. Even if you had to skip that whole little line, you could always just find something to fit in its place. You could go, you know, something like that. Okay, so then I concluded that phrase with, I just came down to the C note on that 3rd fret, 5th string. But I started by sliding in with my ring finger from the 6th fret to the 5th fret on that 5th string, down to my C note down here. And that's all of the first phrase. You can see it's pretty basic. It's just a lot of repetition. And so we're going to keep playing out of this same chord shape for the second time through. All right, so we're starting the second time through, and I started it like this. So we're starting on that C note. That was the last note we played. And I hit that twice. And then I came up to this 5th fret 5th string and slid up to the 7th fret with my ring finger. And I'm wanting to use that finger so that I'm moving my hand back into position. See? So before I was down here, but when I put my ring finger here and slide my whole hand, now I'm in position to play this G shape. It's still my C chord, but we're in this back into that neighborhood. You always want to have your hand in the right position to be able to do the thing that you're wanting to do. So I slid into that and then went, that's just the bar there on the 5th fret, and played 4, 3, 2. Let it ring, right? No need to play all over the place. You can let that ring out. And then I went, isn't that pretty? And that complements the F, because all I was doing at that point in the jam track, it was going C to the F, back to the C, and that's what I did. So I was thinking about my C chord using the G shape, my F chord using the C shape, and back to my C chord using the G shape. So you can see that I'm just staying in the same neighborhood, but I'm not playing that full chord. I'm just playing strings 2 and 4 out of this little triad here, which is part of that G shape. But I'm playing those two, barring with one finger on the 5th fret. And I do a hammer on. While I've got that bar down, I hammer on into that F chord shape. And so my middle finger goes to the 6th fret 2nd string, and my ring finger goes to the 7th fret 4th string. And then I do a pull off. Now when I'm playing that, I'm hybrid picking. You could just strum it. You could go, and that sounds good too, because it's all the notes are all correct. I just think it sounds a little more precise and pedal steely if you go and hybrid pick. So when I do that, I'm picking on the 4th string, and then I'm using my ring finger to pluck the 2nd string. It's not that difficult to do. You just have to kind of get used to it. Like, it's kind of awkward maybe at first, but you can get used to it pretty quick. And then you do a pull off. And then I played this little embellishment that goes. So all I'm doing for that is I'm going back to that F shape where I'm playing strings 4 and 2, but I slid that up 2 frets. And when I do that, I'm playing what would be a G chord. That'd be like going to the 5 chord, then down to the 4, and then down to the 1. And so you could just kind of remember that as an embellishment. If you've got a chord progression where you've got like a 1 chord going to the 4 chord, like we're doing in this, you can always go 5 chord to the 4 chord. You can always throw in that 5 chord just really at any point, and it'll create a tension, and then it'll resolve. So it's just a really pretty little tension to me. I could have just gone from the 5 to the 1. I could have went, right? That would work as well. So you could step it down going 5, 4, 1, or you could just go 5, 1. However you want to do it, that 5 is creating a tension. That's what all it's doing, is just introducing that. And when I played it with a little bit of a different timing. Just a little stagger there to keep it interesting. It's nothing over the top, and it's not super jarring, but it changes it up a little bit. And then this last phrase goes like this. And that, to me, is sort of a Mark Knopfler kind of thing. I feel like that's something I probably borrowed from Mark, but it sounds like something he would do. But these notes are just my C major scale. That's all I'm playing, but I'm starting here on this 6th fret 2nd string, do a pull off to the 5th fret, and then we're coming down to the 3rd string and playing 7, 5, slide down to the 4th fret, and then we come back to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then land on the root, which is my C note there on the 5th fret 3rd string. So all together. And if I were to try and put a theory to that lick, the only thing that kind of jumps out to me is this, which is an encircling kind of thing where you encircle a note, the note being your root, and you play one note behind it, which would be the 7 of your major scale. Then you play the 2, and then you come back to the root. So anytime you want to target a note in a chord, if you know where you're going to land, you know there, but you're not there yet, you can play the note below it and the note above it within the scale that you're playing, and that's just a really cool technique to get that sound. It sounds very very methodical, very thought out, and it is. That's why. All right, so at this point, the chords stay the same in the jam track, but I tried to give it a little different feel. I played something a little different on the bass, and then I threw in a snare drum that wasn't there before, just to kind of change, almost like I'm thinking of it like a song, even though it's just a little jam track. I wanted to create a different part, keeping those same chords. And so what I did to kind of mirror that in my lead is I went up to a higher octave, and I'm still playing harmonies. But check this out. This is super simple when you see what's going on here. So I'm starting by just barring strings 2 and 3 on the 5th fret. And by the way, this is coming out of my C chord, right? There's that triad. That's where that's coming from. And then we're going to go to this shape where I've got my middle finger on the 6th fret 2nd string, ring finger on the 7th fret 3rd string. And I'm going to slide that up 2 frets. So we have this. Now I love this. I use this all the time. If you get nothing else from this lesson, get this, because this will totally change the way you play. This one idea here. What I'm doing is I'm playing 2 notes out of my G shape or my A shape, depending on how you want to look at it, these 2 notes. And I'm harmonically walking up to my E shape. So if I look at my C chord using the E shape and look at strings 2 and 3, these 2 notes, that's where we went to. We started here and we went here. And the way we got there was by doing this. It's really simple when you see it that way. So now file this away as any time you want to play a harmony that works in a song by playing the major scale, you can just find your G shape or your A shape and just find this, this little piece of it, strings 2 and 3. And you can slide into your E. You can also do it chromatically. It's a really cool way to get from one shape to the other. And then the next thing I did after that, I went and hit strings 1 and 2 on the 8th fret. Now, why did those work? Well, they're just strings 1 and 2 out of my E shape. So you can see all I did was I played strings 2 and 3 out of the E shape, and then 1 and 2 out of the E shape. These 2 and these 2. So when you see that, it's like, oh, you're just really playing the chords. And then an embellishment off this. So I kept that bar there on the 8th fret, strings 1 and 2. Do a hammer on to the 10th fret 2nd string. That would be like playing the 6 out of my C chord. And then come down and play strings 2 and 3, but I slid in. I went down a half step and slid into those. But those are the same 2 notes out of my E shape. But here's what I want you to remember out of this, is out of this E shape, you've got this. You can get so much mileage out of that one idea. I'm telling you, between that and what I'm about to show you, the next phrase we're going to go to, which is out of the A shape. But I use this all the time. And this. Listen to all those little harmonies. And now that hopefully the fretboard's lighting up for you and you're seeing them and you're going, oh, I've never thought of it that way, right? You got the flat 7, which we'll get to, but you've got all these ideas that are in this area of by just connecting the chord shapes. Okay, so after this, then I came down to the A shape, which I said I would get to, and played this. So what I love about this is from the A shape and the E shape, I have the same visual little pattern here, which is like where I'm barring 2 strings and I'm doing a hammer on that's, 2 frets up from that on the 2nd string. I do the same thing down here. Now I'm gonna bar on fret 3 and hammer on to the 5th fret. But I'm using the same idea. And when I'm doing that, what I'm thinking about, I'm not thinking about notes or any of that. I'm just thinking about C chord using the E shape, C chord using the A shape. And once I can see that chord, I can easily find this little harmony. And so when you put the 2 together, you get this kind of James Taylor meets Jimi Hendrix. If those 2 ever would meet, it would sound maybe something like this. I love the sound of that though, and I use that all the time. And now I'm gonna play to really emphasize that 5 chord. Now, up to this point, we haven't had a 5 chord, but when I came to this little chorusy part, even though it's still C and F for the most part, I did throw in a G. I forgot I did that in the bass. So I'm gonna mirror that with this. Even if I didn't have that though in the jam track, this would still work by creating that tension with the 5 chord and resolving to the 1 chord. So all I'm doing here is playing strings 2 and 3 out of my G chord using the E shape. Same thing we did up here, right? And then I came here and played strings 2 and 3 on the 5th fret. And those are 2 notes out of my C chord using the A shape. You can see that I'm just playing the chords. But since I'm not playing the full chord and I'm not strumming it like a chord, it sounds like a really pretty little harmonized lead, and that's what it is. But it's a different way of kind of thinking about the fretboard. Instead of thinking scales so much, we're just playing the chords, and we're putting stops where they need to be so that there's rest like a singer would be singing, and taking breaths. You're not just all over one big run-on sentence. You've got time to soak it up. Little vibrato like the human voice. You're trying to emulate singing. All right, I'm going to wrap up the part 1 video there. That's a lot of information. In the second video, we'll go through the second half, which we'll go through the cycle one more time, and then I'm going to throw in the relative minor, which is an A minor, and we've got some ideas that we're going to play over that. So if you'd like to watch that part 2 video, get the MP3 jam track, get the tab, all the extra materials for this lesson. You can get those by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP634. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of this video. Let me know if you like it, let me know if you don't like it, and let me know if you've had any breakthroughs. I always love reading those. They get me excited. That's what I do this stuff for. I like knowing that somebody's like, oh, it's life-changing, because I know what a big deal that was for me when I discovered things like this. All right, we'll see you in the part 2 video.